We are talking about 1959 or 1960s, I don't know, it's unclear. White Knights, which is an adaptation of Dostoevsky's book of the same name. And you know what? I actually really appreciated and liked it. I felt like it really got to the core of the emotions within the book. I feel like they did add a little bit to it to maybe make it fit the Soviet ideology a little bit through the narration, but I don't think that was a bad thing necessarily. This was the first movie I think I've watched that has come out of the Soviet Union. It came out in 1959 or 1960. I don't know. The YouTube says 59, Letterboxd said 1960. I don't know. But the adaptation I felt was very good. They added some stuff, I believe, mostly surrounding our male protagonist. They've called him the Dreamer in this version. I don't think he really has a name in the book itself. And what they added was, I think, to allow them to critique bourgeois activities and also to allow them to critique maybe something that would be perceived as laziness. So our Dreamer is obviously, just like the book, he runs into Nastenka. I think that's the way they were saying it in the movie. I've recorded part of it, but I can't really hear it when he says her name. I think it's Nastenka. And they meet, he falls in love with her over 5 days. The delivery of the actors, I did feel like the female lead was maybe stronger. The male lead, who actually, when he's they basically made it so he's telling the story in his present day, and the story's being told from the kind of the past, and he's kind of narrating it, and also like there's layers of narrative. I feel like when he's the older self, I felt like the performance was much better and much more believable than his younger self, but perhaps that's him remembering himself to be more excitable. Perhaps that is the choice they've gone for with this. Nastenka, she's almost perceived as almost perfect. Even when she falls in love or doubts herself, she almost feels like she is meant to be perfect. The acting, therefore, Nastenka's acting, great. The female lead was superb. Like I mentioned, I wasn't too it was a bit too campy, and I know that's kind of maybe the style when I've watched Hollywood films from the 50s and the 60s, so maybe that's why. Obviously, I'm not too familiar with Soviet acting techniques, even though I was supposed to study Soviet acting at university before I dropped out. You live and you learn. But like I was saying, this is the first Soviet era movie I watched, although I was taught in film school briefly by a lecturer who was a filmmaker in Poland when it was part of the Soviet Union, but that's, again, another piece of lore that I've just dropped. Getting back to the film, again, late 50s, early 60s movie. Sets I thought were really nice, they were really beautiful. There was a lot of nice cinematography, some nice long shots of everything. The parts they added were basically the Dreamer is telling her, and I believe he does do this in the book, but he's telling her that he wastes a lot of his time just dreaming and thinking of things, and they show some of these dreams, and a lot of them come across as very bourgeois dreams. He is maybe royalty, or one of the two of them are royalty. They are fighting, they are in love. Their expressions of love are full of this overt passion, but there's a lot of dancing, and towards the end of his dreams, he is in this kind of, with this procession of women who want to dance with him, and he's an aristocrat, and by the end he's very bored of it, kind of maybe suggesting that, hey, look, all of this riches doesn't fulfill you as a person. I feel like that is the idea that they were trying to get across through his dreams. And Nastenka is kind of the thing where he's like, oh, I feel so fulfilled because I've met you and I'm in love with you, very much like in the book, but I feel like they really added those scenes to really be like, hey, see, look, this desire for wealth, this desire to be a bourgeois, this anti-Soviet ideology is harmful to you. There isn't a lot of criticism of faith, which I guess Dostoevsky was a critic of faith, but that doesn't really come through in the book. And also this being a Soviet film, it's not really presented either. The church is only, I believe, mentioned once, and it was just, I wasn't at church when everyone else went, which was kind of interesting. But it did feel quite faithful to the book. The only thing I did feel like, though, at the very end, it felt a lot more dramatic. It felt, I don't know, in the book, they kind of have their final day together, and I believe they part ways, and then he goes to try and get to be with her, and then finds out that her lover has returned. In the movie, that's what I'm remembering of the book. In the movie, she's finally been like, oh, if I can get over him, I love you, and we'll be together. And he's like, boy, howdy. He feels very Boy Scout, but maybe that's the way they were trying to play him. Maybe naive, perhaps, even though we'll get to that actually at the end, something else. This naivety, but then as he's about to walk her home, her actual lover is there, and they reunite, and she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, he's here, I'm sorry, I apologise. And then I think, like in the book, she does send him a letter being like, I wish I could love you both, why couldn't you be him? And it's like, oh, bleh, bleh, death. Unrequited love is a hell of a drug, whether experiencing it yourself or seeing it through movie or other media. God, it just rips your heart out, doesn't it? But I did feel like they did add something to the end of the book where, again, it's gone back to him being a narrator of the present day, where he feels less naive, he feels a little bit jaded, but he's like, I don't know what's wrong with me, I could never hold a grudge against you, Nastenka. And then he's like, I wasted my youth, going back to this thing where he would spend all his time just dreaming and thinking and not actually doing anything productive to society, kind of how he basically says it. But I wasted my youth, but of that youth, loving you those 5 days, and that love I have for you was not the waste. And then he like addresses the camera. He does this multiple times when it cuts back to him in the present day. It's like, gentlemen, I wasted so much of my life. Why did I do this? Don't waste your life like me. And it kind of is, it does feel a little bit like that Soviet idea of, hey, you know, don't waste your life dreaming of being bourgeois. Be involved, do something with your life. Now, like Nastenka's whole thing, Nastenka, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. Her whole deal was like, I want to go and live my life. I want to do something with my life. And again, remember, the book is set prior to the Soviet Union, and so is the movie. The movie is set in, I believe, like Romanov era Russia. So even she is like, I just want to do something, be something, or even, you know, I just don't want to be stuck at home forever. And I guess maybe also that does present, I think Dostoevsky did have that in the book, but also, you know, Soviet Union, even at that time, which I believe was maybe it was the end of, after Stalin had died, I believe, and they were doing de-Stalinization. They were being like, hey, women, go to the workforce, get out of your house, you don't have to be at home sewing and knitting all the time, which there was some regression to that after the war, but I think then they move away from it. But yeah, I did feel like the movie took the White Knights, kept it almost the exact same, but added these little things to maybe be like, hey, this is the kind of ideology we want our movie to be presenting, which, you know, American adaptations did that during the Cold War as well. They would take adaptations of books and really hammer home the American dream. You gotta aspire to start a business and be independent. So it made sense. You know, movies still do that, adaptations of movies still do that to this day. I did feel like, you know, the dialogues were great. Nastenka's performance was really good, especially towards the end. And I really did like they played with like the weather, like they used the rain very effectively. Some great shots of him sitting in the rain, or the start of the fifth night together. The wind is blowing. The actors are doing really great. There's a lot of long takes. So that one I described of him dancing with all those women. I believe it was just one shot, and it's really well choreographed. He dances with one, goes to the next, dances to the next, and it's like he's coming forward, the camera's coming with him, a woman comes in and dances with him. Beautifully done. And again, remembering this is all done on film in the late 50s into the 60s, so even more costly. So yeah, I thought it was good. I will put a link to it down below. It was about an hour and a half, obviously in Russian with English subtitles. I don't know how good the subtitles are. Some of the sentences didn't make complete sense, like the subtitles, so maybe that's a thing. Maybe the subtitling isn't amazing. They're baked into it. It's not a YouTube thing. It is actually on the video. So I will put that down below. It was also, there were no ads, at least when I watched it, and I watched it on my television, so I didn't have an ad blocker. So if you've got an hour and a half to spare and you want to watch it, I highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. I gave it like 4 on my Letterboxd, so I thought it was a good movie. But that is White Nights. I know this came out at very short notice of you knowing the book. I apologise. The February movie is If Cats Disappeared from the World from 2016, 10 years on. Wow. So look forward to that. I hope you enjoy White Nights. If you've not watched it yet, I do recommend it. Again, I will put it in the description down below. I will remember. But yeah, thank you for watching. Oh, I like it. I like the book club, the movie club. I like it. Be sure for the book club video coming out soon, before the end of the month.